Of all the noises that trigger an immediate, almost instinctive irritation in a conversation, few are as reviled as the common verbal tick, the filler words. The like, the, you know. We've been conditioned to view them as the linguistic equivalent of static, verbal clutter, an unnecessary distraction, or worse, definitive proof of a speaker's lack of confidence, intelligence, or preparation. We are told to train ourselves, to meticulously scrub them from our speech, to sound polished and professional. But this pervasive judgment is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain actually produces language in real time. The sounds of and are not linguistic mistakes. They are cognitive signals, the audible exhaust of an incredibly complex, high-speed neural engine performing crucial maintenance. These filler words are not a sign that your language system is failing. They are proof that your brain is masterfully succeeding at an almost impossible task, turning chaotic, abstract thought into structured, coherent sound at a rate of roughly 150 words per minute. These fillers are, in fact, an essential, universal, and highly functional element of human communication. To understand why your brain cannot and should not get rid of them, we have to look past the surface annoyance and delve into the neurolinguistics of real-time speech production. The moment you decide to speak, your brain initiates a complex, multi-stage production process that must happen in fractions of a second. This process involves 4 major independent stages that must be perfectly coordinated: conceptualization, deciding what you want to say; formulation, the lexical search, selecting the specific words, lexical access, and assembling them into the correct grammatical framework; syntactic planning, articulation, sending motor commands to the lungs, throat, tongue, and lips to physically produce the sound; monitoring, listening to yourself, and correcting errors. The problem is that the speed and efficiency of the first stage, thinking the thought, often far outpaces the speed and precision of the second stage, finding the words. The human brain is a torrent of conceptual information, but the lexical retrieval system, your mental dictionary, can sometimes lag behind. When a lag occurs when your brain can't find the exact noun, verb, or adjective it needs quickly enough, it faces a critical choice. It can either halt the entire process, creating a long silence, or it can insert a filler. The fact that the brain overwhelmingly chooses the filler is the first piece of evidence for its necessity. These fillers exist in every known language on the planet. The English, the French, the German, the Spanish, the Mandarin, naga. This universality is the strongest proof that the filler word is not a cultural habit, but a fundamental cognitive need arising from the shared architecture of the human speech production system. It is a biological necessity. The primary function of the filler word is to literally buy time for the formulation stage, giving the brain precious milliseconds to complete its search and planning tasks. This is not a random guess. It's a measurable, predictable phenomenon confirmed by decades of neurolinguistic research. Studies tracking the placement of these disfluencies have shown they are not scattered randomly throughout speech. Instead, fillers disproportionately cluster in highly specific, strategic locations, always signaling an upcoming moment of increased cognitive load. Specifically, fillers almost always appear 1. Before low-frequency words. This is the most consistent finding. If a speaker is about to use a common word, like house or go, they rarely use a filler. If they are about to use a low-frequency, more specialized word, like chattel, orthogonal, or a less common proper noun, the filler word, the is almost guaranteed to appear immediately before it. The brain uses the pause to frantically search the deepest, least accessible corners of its lexical database. Researchers have quantified this time-buying mechanism. The presence of an can extend the word-finding window by 500 to 1,000 milliseconds, giving the brain the necessary processing time to successfully retrieve the complex item. 2. Before complex grammar. Fillers also frequently appear right before the beginning of a complex grammatical structure. such as a subordinate clause or an unusual sentence arrangement. This indicates that the brain is not just searching for words, but it is also using the filler time to complete its syntactic planning, ensuring that the verb tense, subject-verb agreement, and overall sentence structure are correctly assembled before articulation begins. The is thus a conscious, strategic, and functional utterance chosen over silence. If the speaker simply stopped, the brain would risk the whole idea fragmenting, or worse, losing the floor to the listener. The filler is a lifeline that keeps the complex stream of thought intact. The second, equally vital function of the filler word is entirely social. It operates as a sophisticated, nonverbal, yet verbal cue that expertly manages the subtle social mechanics of conversation. In any dialogue, there is a constant, unspoken negotiation over the right to speak, known as turn-taking. The average time between speakers in English conversation is astonishingly short, about 200 to 300 milliseconds. If a pause exceeds this window, the listener's brain automatically registers it as an end-of-turn signal, and they will interrupt and begin speaking. The brain, knowing this rule, cannot risk a silent pause when it is still formulating a thought. The filler word, the or is the perfect counter-strategy. It is a highly compressed, low-information utterance that serves as a keep-talking signal. It tells the listener, "I am not done. I have simply initiated a brief search function. Please wait." By inserting this tiny, low-effort sound, the speaker avoids the risk of being interrupted, thus successfully retaining their conversational floor. Studies explicitly designed to measure conversational interruption rates have consistently shown that the use of fillers dramatically reduces the probability of the listener interrupting. The listener's brain registers the as a continuation of speech, even though it carries no semantic meaning. And this allows the speaker to safely continue their internal planning without the external pressure of losing their turn. If the filler word is a sign of internal speech production issues, then why is it so useful to the person listening? Surprisingly, the filler word is not only helpful to the speaker, but also provides a distinct cognitive benefit to the listener. As established, fillers often precede rare, complex, or important information. The listener's brain is highly efficient and uses these fillers as advance warnings. When a listener hears an their brain initiates a small, immediate preparatory response. The acoustic signal of the filler acts as a cognitive alert, signaling to the listener, "Attention, the next word is likely to be difficult to retrieve or complex to process." In experiments where listeners were asked to recall a sentence, those who heard a filler word, the plane landed at immediately preceding a low-frequency word, O'Hare showed higher rates of successful word recall than those who heard the same sentence with the filler removed. The had allowed the listener's brain to activate the necessary resources to process the upcoming complexity, effectively making the listener a better, more prepared recipient of information. Ironically, the attempt to achieve perfect speech, the goal of eliminating all fillers, can actually make the listening experience more difficult. Perfect, rapid, uninterrupted speech denies the listener those crucial cognitive markers. The listener is forced to process all information at the same intensity, without the vital cues that help them anticipate and categorize the complexity of the incoming data. The phenomenon of the filler word is a beautiful testament to the high-speed, imperfect, and socially intricate nature of human communication. The verbal clutter we try so desperately to erase is, in fact, an ingenious structural tool. The and like are not a reflection of a weak mind. They are the sound of a brilliantly complex system trying to solve multiple high-pressure problems simultaneously. Lexical retrieval, buying critical time for the brain to find the perfect, most accurate word. Syntactic planning, allowing for the correct assembly of complex grammatical structures. Social signaling, serving as an acoustic flag to the listener. "Do not interrupt me, I am still processing." Listener pre-cueing, functioning as a cognitive beacon that prepares the listener for the complexity of the upcoming information. The next time you catch yourself or someone else uttering a filler word, don't judge it as a defect. Smile, because you are witnessing a neuro-linguistic marvel, a highly evolved, efficient, and essential piece of cognitive code that uses noise to create order and buys the speaker the precious fraction of a second needed to articulate a complex, coherent thought. It's the sound of the brain winning a constant, invisible race against time.